the lessons that we have drawn from 62 operations, 65 operations, 71 operations, and 99 operations. We'll start with Rohit Agarwal, who will be talking about lessons that we learned from 62, and thereafter it will be followed by General Gill, who will talk about 65 operations. Dhruv Katoch will talk about 71 operations, and then finally General Puri, who commanded 8 during Kargil War, he will talk about the lessons learned during Kargil War. So over to you, Rohit.
Thank you, sir, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before I commence, I just want to mention that, sitting in the comfortable environments of this auditorium and with the benefit of hindsight, which is more than 6/6, it's very easy to critique, criticize, and draw lessons from what people did 40, 50 years back. Especially for a person like me, myself, who has never seen a bullet fired in anger. It would be completely wrong if I don't lay down the premise with which I am doing this. The premise is that with the inputs available at that time, with the resources available at that time, and with the best of intentions, the decisions taken and the actions taken by each and every one of those commanders and men were the best that they could at that point of time. So for us to review them and to critique them, the aim is not to find any faults, but to make sure that in future such inputs and such resources can be improved upon, and mistakes, if any, are not repeated. So having said that, I think one thing that stood out in the 1962 operations was, I think it was before the Indian Army actually came of age. And the transition between 62 and 65, because actually I studied 65 also very closely, I don't know about that. Needless to say that the lessons which were drawn from 62 were absorbed and implemented, and that is by 65 we could. And I think one of the major lessons was the civil-military interface, or political and military leadership interface, which we saw, and I need not repeat them over here, we're all aware of them, of the lacunas which were there in 1962, the abnormal relationship, or I don't know what would be a correct word for it, between certain senior military leaders and the political establishment and the leadership. And this, to a large extent, was refined, removed in subsequent wars, and we saw the result in 65. General Malik just gave this presentation, and we saw how he highlighted the strength of our junior leadership, particularly at unit level and below. And I think that is what stood out in 1962 also. And that is what saved the day for us, or saved our faces for us. Now, when I look at this across the spectrum of the wars that we have fought post-independence, I come across a very interesting paradox, and I'm sure a lot of you must have wondered about this. When we talk, whether we talk of 47, 48 operations, whether we talk of 62, whether we talk of 65, whether we talk of 71, one thing always comes out is that the junior leadership was very good. Yet, wherever, there were certain gaps in the senior leadership. Now, my point to you, ladies and gentlemen, and to my panel also, sir, is that the junior leadership which was there in the earlier wars is what was the senior leadership in the subsequent wars. So, therefore, what went wrong in between? When we have very good senior leadership, why do we always have a situation where we have to question the senior leadership? Possibly that's a point to ponder. I have no answer to that. Possibly we need a better mechanism to prepare our senior leaders for these eventualities. To transform them, obviously it means that the qualities or the attributes that we require from a good junior military leader or a good battlefield commander, are not exactly the same as that what we need from a senior military leader. So the grooming or the transformation of a good junior military leader to a good senior military leader is something that needs to be emphasized upon. And I don't know whether my distinguished panelists will agree with me or not. What I have noticed in both the 62 and 65 which I have studied is that the maximum, I won't say failure, but the weaknesses, and that if we can identify them by the fact that how many commanders were replaced in battle, were at the brigade and divisional commander levels. So that is another thought that we need to go into, that probably it is at that level that the leadership is the most challenging. And is it that the transition between a successful battalion commander and a brigade commander or a divisional commander, are we doing enough to enable our leaders to take that transition and grow into those roles? Because probably by the time they reach the corps commander's level, the filtration process also kicks in, and also they have had enough time to prepare for that. So it's this key area of preparing our brigade commanders and divisional commanders for the roles is probably what we need to look at. I will not take any more time, sir. That's conclude the discussion.
Thank you very much, Rohit. I think it's a very important point that he has made, and I think that point was emphasized by General A.K. Singh also in his